morning, everyone. It's nice to see some familiar faces, but I see a whole bunch of new folks. I look forward to meeting you afterwards. And I didn't get to sit quite close enough to Ken to be able to sing as loud as I wanted to, because I would have thrown everybody off. So, as Casey said, I do work as a counselor, helping people with alcohol and drug problems. And unlike all the other diseases that we're aware of, this one has a particularly unusual solution. There's no protocol, there's no chemo, there's no radiation. It can't be cut out. And we tell people something that just flies in the face of Western medicine, which is you have a disease that will kill you and it requires a spiritual solution. And that's when most people equate back to the religious abuse they endured in Southern Baptist churches and other churches like that, like my own, when I was a kid. And they think this is hopeless because they confuse religion and spirituality. There's a big difference. I think Unitarian Universalists of all denominations understand that. That's probably why we're here this morning. So one of the things that we try to teach is, okay, if we all have physical health, and we're either in good physical health or poor physical health, we want you to understand, this is what we're telling folks, and this is what I'm sharing this morning, is that we have spiritual health too. And that can be healthy or not. We can be on the right track or not. If I go to my doctor and say, look, doc, I've been really thirsty lately and I find myself having to use the restroom all the time and I have no energy, what do you think he's probably going to think it is? Let's test and see if you got diabetes. There are symptoms that he can recognize to say you may have this, and we're going to rule it out or not. Well, what I'd like to talk to you about this morning is a very simple model, because when we look at our principles and it says a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, I've always interpreted that to mean that we're all on an individual spiritual path, because to me life's meaning is drawing from that sacred space within as we long toward the better, if you will. So what I'd like to do this morning is just kind of give you a simple little model to consider as you take your own spiritual temperature at any given time. And the first place I want to start is, if you will imagine as I talk this, that there are three circles. There's one here, there's one here, and there's one up here. And down here, this is a relationship I have with myself. Okay? And when it's unhealthy, I know it's unhealthy because the conversation going on in my head is telling me that I'm not enough. And our culture thrives on us internalizing that. Because I'm either too tall or too short, my teeth aren't white enough, I don't have enough hair, my house is not big enough, my car is not nice enough, I don't have enough in the bank. And we hear those messages over and over and over, and it's a shame, but I think we can internalize those because we hear them all day long. We're not enough as we are. We need more. And the Buddhists teach us that longing for things and that desire for extra things is never satisfied, is it? It's like trying to put out a fire with fat. We have to get to a place where we're actually just comfortable where we are right now as we are. But I know that I'm in an unhealthy spiritual place when I'm highly judgmental of myself. When I make a mistake and I don't want anybody to know. Or I'm just so driven by perfection that I'm never satisfied with anything. Okay? It's much easier for me when I'm in a healthier place to say, you know, I'm a goof and I make mistakes and I'm human. That is a much healthier place for me. But when I am in an unhealthy place, I'm pretty intolerant of my shortcomings. I'm judgmental. And I don't know about you guys, but if I kind of have a series of little mishaps, boy, I can dig under my bed and pull out this box and pull out the cat of nine tails, whack, whack. And I'll just beat myself up for days. And if I do that for too long, I begin to believe all that negative chatter in here. Okay? I'm not accepting, I'm not forgiving, I'm not kind, I'm not loving, I'm not playful and fun. When my relationship with myself is in that highly judgmental place of unhealthy spiritual relation with myself. Okay? So I want to park this over here just for a moment. Okay? I'm going to bring it over here and talk about how I perceive other people. Because if I'm judgmental and intolerant of myself, how do you think I'm going to be with other people? I'm the same way. And I tend to hang out, if I'm judgmental and intolerant, for some reason, I kind of attract those kind of people. And they're being intolerant and judgmental of me right back. Okay? So when I'm in an unhealthy place, I don't see the similarities in other people. I see our differences. And because you're different, you're wrong. And I will own that I have a real need to convince you why you're wrong and why thinking like me is the right way to think. So when I'm in that place with other people, in that relationship of trying to convince them all the time, or seeing how they're different than me instead of seeing them on the same path as I am, it creates what I would consider spiritual unhealth in my relation to other people. I'm judgmental, I'm intolerant, I'm not forgiving, and they're different. They need to be more like me if they're going to be right. Now, when I'm healthy, I look at them and go, wow, that's a different point of view. Let me think about that. And when I'm listening to them, I'm really listening to them instead of formulating my response while they're talking. When I'm open to receive what they have to share with me, oh my goodness, what can happen for me is pretty astounding. I can actually learn something, right? And often, and you guys have heard me speak enough to know I'm fairly way out there on the liberal continuum. When I'm talking to people that are on the other end of the continuum, oh my gosh, I can be extremely judgmental and I'm not listening and I'm judging and I'm just not able to hear a thing. When I'm open and I'm healthy and I'm forgiving of myself, I tend to be that way with other people. And I don't judge them as harshly. So when I'm in a healthy place over here, I'm meeting new people. I'm open to them. I'm actually hearing things because I'm present instead of in here thinking about how I'm going to respond to them. And we both grow, or at least I do, from the experience. Right? Now, so here's individual, this is my relationship with myself. Here's my relationship and my interactions with other people. And so I want to put at the top here this thing that, for lack of a better word, we often call God, or the intelligence of the universe, or whatever you want to call it. For people that are in recovery, sometimes we say it's just good, orderly direction. Or group of drunks. Works too. Because when we're in a healthy relationship, everybody gets better. But one of the things that I want to challenge us to think about this morning is how often I find, because I know what I don't believe, that I stop there. And when it says a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, and we're on a path of spiritual discovery, I can't have all the answers and be on a path of spiritual discovery. So when I consider that I've got all the answers because I know what I don't believe, I'm missing out on the other half, which is, what am I evolving toward in my spiritual life? Am I praying and meditating? Am I in charge? Is it this? Is it Stan and the whole universe is like this? Which I can fall into that too. Usually when I'm in an unhealthy place over here, it's all about me, right? Or is it Stan and the universe? And I'm just part of something much bigger than me. And I'm in this open and willing place to engage and learn and grow. My dad used to call it cranial sclerosis. When you think you have all the answers and then you stop there. And I have to admit that so many times when I'm talking to Unitarian Universalists, I feel like we might do that from time to time. Some of us are on a real journey, but others go, we're not that, I'm not that, and we stop right here. And I wonder how much journeying we're still doing. My dad also got an aunt in North Carolina who spent her whole life in this very little bitty town. And she went to a very conservative church. And she had all the answers. And she had all of your answers. Didn't travel much. And pretty much her whole world was that little town in North Carolina. And one time my dad said to me, you know, your Aunt Betty is not 41 years old. She's lived the same year 41 times. And that's the one thing I want to avoid, is living the same year 41 times. And if I stop my growth, there's a likelihood that will happen. So when I'm thinking I'm on this journey, and I'm thinking about this great mystery we call God, and I view it not the way I used to as a Southern Baptist, as a punishing, vengeful, unforgiving, judgmental God, just like Stan is over here, unforgiving, judgmental, punishing over here, and just how I am with other people, it's no surprise that this is kind of a loop that I get in, right? You know, it's like they say, if you're kind of an angry, judgmental person, you embrace an ugly, angry, judgmental God. The reverse holds true as well. If I'm on my spiritual journey with people that are on a spiritual journey and we're both open and we're tolerant and we're questioning, I see our Wayside pulpit, to question is the answer, but continue to question is the answer too, right? And continue to question and get an answer and question some more and get an answer and question some more. When I'm on that path, it seems that this relationship I have with this mystery is just much richer, even though I don't even know what it is. And it reminds me of the minister who said, you know, you don't have to understand God. You can't put it in a box and understand it. What's more important is that we experience it. We experience it. My personal experience has been that I've never heard a voice that sounds like Sean Connery. Stand, let's go. Sit down. Let's have a conversation. I've never had that. Right? That's when I'm standing there and Peter comes over and puts his hand on my shoulder and says, how are you doing? And I know it's real. That's when I feel the presence of something so much greater than me. It's when I'm driving down here by myself and I see all these incredible dogwoods and redbud trees, and I'm just moved by the fact that we've got this vibrant spring going on all around us. And the hills. I'm a flatlander. I'm from South Louisiana. Being up here this time of year and seeing the hills turning green and everything is a very spiritual experience for me. So I guess what I'd like to share with you is that in the end, if we view our spiritual health using these 3 points as references, at any given time we should be able to say, yeah, I'm in a pretty good place, or ooh, I need a tune-up. I'm not feeling that well. Here's one very practical way to do this. I was on a retreat one time and this guy kind of came up to me and said, hey, how are your pies today? I went, what? He said, how are your pies? I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. He said, how are you physically today? How are you intellectually? How are you emotionally? And how are you spiritually? I said, I don't know. They said, well, how are your shoulders? I said, what are you talking about? He said, how are your shoulders? And I had to recognize that a lot of times I'm like this. I'm all wound up and too tight, right? When I'm in a good place, my shoulders are like this, okay? Or I'm going, oh, I'm fine, I'm relaxed, everything's fine, like that. And physically, there's a lot going on that I can identify and understand other parts. Here's how it works for me, okay? Go to the mail, I see a bill, put it on the counter, don't open it. Right? Might open it the next morning because I'm feeling guilty I didn't open it the day before. And I look at it and go, oh my God, how am I going to pay that? I'm driving to work like this. Man, how am I going to pay that? And what happens for me then is I can take it off on a loop. How am I going to pay that? If I can't pay that, I'm not going to pay the mortgage. If I can pay the mortgage, oh my God, I'm going to end up by the river living in a van. I'm like this. Okay, by the time I get to work. And my friends go, how are you doing? I'm great, I'm fine. I'm doing well, thank you. I appreciate you asking. How about you? Okay. If I'm like this, intellectually, I'm churning, right? I've got a racing monkey mind. And it's thinking, and I don't know about yours, but mine can take it all the way down to the worst possible outcome, right? So intellectually, I've got a racing mind. So the first half of my pies, my physicality is all knotted up, and intellectually, I've got a racing mind. Emotionally, what do you think I'm feeling? It's fear. Sometimes terror. But I'm afraid. I'm afraid things aren't going to be the way they should be. And really, stepping back over here, I'm afraid that I'm not good enough, can't pull this whole thing called life off, right? So emotionally, I'm afraid. So what does that say about my spiritual condition? It probably says that I'm closed off to the amazing miracles going on around me. It probably says that I'm closed off and trying to run the show myself instead of just kind of getting, I don't want to misuse the word grace here. But when I'm doing the right things and I'm meditating and I'm in a good, healthy place with myself and with other people, and I'm really engaged in reading and meditating and praying, then things are going pretty well. When I'm not, my spirituality suffers. And I'm not trusting that things are going to be okay, and it's amazing. I don't believe in that kind of pan-galactic Santa Claus kind of God where you go, please give me a red wagon, and poof, it shows up. Okay, that never worked for me, and I don't think that's how it is. But I do know there's something going on around me that when I'm doing the right thing, it's like I step into a stream and I'm going in the right direction. And when I don't, it's like I'm wading upstream. We have some beautiful streams and rivers in this state. And if you've ever gone kayaking or canoeing and kind of pulled off on the sandbar to get out and stretch your legs a little bit, to get back in the water and just kind of feel it rushing against your legs is kind of a great sensation. But if you turn around and try to walk up against it, it's hard, isn't it? Because the flow is going this way and I'm going that way. And when we're doing this thing I call good spiritual health, it seems like we're flowing in some kind of zone of grace, if you will. That things are working out. And even when they don't, I'm okay. Because it's going to be okay. It always is okay. Sometimes it's scary, but it's okay. So I challenge you going forward to think about that from time to time. You can check your pies anytime you want. But I guarantee if you check your pies and your fists are knotted like this, or your shoulders are up here, you can tease it all the way down. You're probably having some racing thoughts. You're probably scared, and it probably means your spiritual connection is not what it could be. And spirituality is such an ethereal thing to say. Religion, I get. It's rules, and it's a building, and there's a book, and I get it. I know where I stand. With spirituality, it's like seeing fog and trying to grab it, right? I see it, I get it, but it just slips through my fingers. That's why we kind of need a way of saying, you know what? I'm in a good place today because I don't have these other things going on. I don't have my shoulders up here, and I don't have that fear going on. There's a great little story about a fish. I may have told it here before. A little bitty fish swimming around. And he's going up to all the fish and goes, excuse me, I'm trying to find the ocean. Can you tell me how to get there? And they just kind of turn around and blow him off. And he finally finds a fish that will listen to him. He says, excuse me, can you tell me? I've been looking for the ocean all morning long. In fact, it's been days. Can you tell me how to get there? I'm trying to find the ocean. And the big fish just kind of swims around and looks at him eye to eye and goes, this is the ocean. You're swimming in it. And the little fish goes, that can't be. This is just water. And swims off. I think that's what we do sometimes. I think we're absolutely swimming in something that we hardly understand. And we don't feel it or experience it because it doesn't suit what we think it should be. Let me close with one reading from W.E. Du Bois, and then something that someone shared at Emerson Thought last week, church in Clarksville. And by the way, thank you for inviting me up here. I'm really eager to see you guys afterwards, and I deeply appreciate the chance to speak to you and be with you. The prayer of our souls is a petition for persistence. I need to keep going. Even when I don't feel it, I need to recognize that it's there and I can find it if I'm open to it. The prayer of our souls is a petition for persistence, not for the one good deed or single thought, but deed on deed, thought on thought, until day calling until day shall make a life worth living. That's what this is about to me. A life worth living cannot be found without that spiritual journey, that spiritual searching. Even if we never find that concrete answer, I don't think we do, because it's not concrete. It's the experience. Not that we understand God, but that we experience God. Last week at our church in Clarksville, we read the president of the congregation read a little note that someone sent us from Arkansas. It was a young woman whose family was in the military, dad was in the military, and they had gone to our church there a couple times. And she'd been involved in RE there. And I can imagine, sometimes we forget how difficult it can be for our children, because they hear us talk. And they go to school and they're surrounded by children who are very conservative and Christian. And I've even had my daughter received a Bible in the mail, and her little friend said, "That's okay, Gracie, God loves you anyway." Okay. Sometimes we forget what it's like for them. And what she said in this note was, "Thank you so much for being there for me, because I didn't know anybody there, and when my family brought me to the Unitarian Universalist congregation, you were open and you were non-judgmental, and you just really supported us. And I will never forget your kindness. I was like 15 or 16 years old, and being able to come to your church made all the difference." Now she's in her 20s. She's director of an RE program in Arkansas. And she said, "Let me just end this note," and this is how I'll end this talk this morning. She said, let me end this note with some words from Ralph Waldo Emerson as a way to use as a guiding compass in your life. She said, "Be silly, be honest, and be kind." And I would just add to that, and be open to the experience of something that we hardly understand. Thank you.